Let me briefly introduce myself. I am Badruddin. I take care of the business development for the ROXUL Group. And in today's presentation, I'm going to talk about the ROXUL Group and what exactly we do, the solutions that we have, but most importantly, the technical parameters of insulation that is impacting the steel building or steel structures in general. So that will be the focus for today's presentation. So to begin with, let me introduce my company, my group, the ROXUL Group. This term ROXUL, this is one of the most common terms in the construction fraternity and especially for steel buildings. Everyone sitting in the room would have heard about ROXUL. But the confusion is, what does ROXUL mean? Is it a brand or is it a product? ये कोई generic नाम है या किसी product का नाम है? That's the confusion everyone has. So let me clarify that ROXUL is a brand. Yes, you heard me right. ROXUL is a brand. It is not a generic name. So ROXUL is the world's biggest and the oldest manufacturers of this material, which is called as stone wool. That's the generic name of this material, stone wool. And what we are doing is that we are melting the stone or the basalt rock that is coming from a volcanic eruption, and we are converting that to fibers. So whatever properties, whatever strengths that a stone or a rock has, that is always found in our material also. That's the beauty of our material. Now, to cut the confusion about this name ROXUL, let me highlight that, as I mentioned, that we are the biggest manufacturers of this world, of this material, which is called as stone wool. And if you go to Europe or America or any other country in the world, and when you say that you want ROXUL, you will be guided to the original ROXUL. India mein situation thoda different hai. So when we came to India in 2011 and we set up our factory in Gujarat, we saw that around 12 to 13 people have, some or the other way imitated the name ROXUL. Somebody is using it as a prefix or a suffix or whatever it is. So how does the customer come to know that which is the original ROXUL? That's the million-dollar question, right? So two simple ways to spot the original ROXUL. One, the logo that you see on the screen. That's the original ROXUL logo sign, the volcano logo. So if that's the logo which is present on the material or on the data sheet or whatever it is, then only then that is the original ROXUL. The other very simple way is our brand name in India. So in India, we operate as ROXUL ROCKWOOL. That's our entity name in India, which is a 100% subsidiary of the original ROXUL Group. So next time if you want the original ROXUL, please connect with the ROXUL ROCKWOOL team. Typically, these are the applications or these are the solutions that we cater to. Obviously, roofing in steel buildings is one of the biggest requirements. So we are talking about insulation for a underdeck, that is a single skin roof. It could be a double skin roof, like a sandwich roof. We are offering insulation for sandwich panels. We are offering insulation for overdeck insulation. We are offering insulation for drywall partitions and so on. So what you see on the screen are typically the insulation solutions that we have for buildings. Now coming to the most important part of the presentation, the technical parameters of insulation. So as a consumer or as a consultant, when you are choosing insulation, I'm sure that the primary criteria that are mentioned on the screen, these are on your mind. I mean, ideally you would want to have an insulation in your building if it is able to suffice fire performance, thermal performance, acoustic performance, as well as durability. So that's, as a client or as a consultant or as a contractor, you should always be looking at these parameters, that whichever insulation material you are choosing, they should always suffice these requirements. And stone wool is one of the materials which is not only sufficing the primary criteria, but it is also able to suffice the secondary criteria as well. So I'm going to elaborate that. Talking about thermal properties of the insulation material, obviously this is the main role of the insulation material. Why do you want insulation in a building? Because आपको बाहर का गर्मी अंदर नहीं चाहिए. You want to cut off the heat that is coming out from the outside to the inside. And that's exactly what our material does. It has these air pockets or air voids within the fibrous structure of the material which are able to absorb the heat, and that's why it is not allowing the heat to transmit from one side to the other side. That's the primary role of the material. Now the question is that at times we have seen that how do you really decide on the thickness or the density of the material? Now when it comes to the thermal performance, Mind you, thickness plays the most important role. And please take a note of this point, because we have seen people comparing a 50 mm insulation with a 12 mm insulation, and which is definitely not fair. So if I take an example of the ECBC, they mentioned that for an industrial building, the ideal U value should be around 0.2. Okay, and for achieving a 0.2, you ideally need a 100 mm insulation material, because everything depends on the thermal conductivity, that is K value. From there you derive the R value or the thermal resistance, and from there the U value comes. So it's a technical calculation which is very simple, very straightforward, but if you have to check two things. One, the K value or the thermal conductivity, and the thickness of the insulation. These are two very, very important criteria, and basis that you can derive at the thermal performance of the insulation material. Next is the acoustic capability of the material. Obviously, we are sitting here, we don't want any outside noise to come inside, and that's exactly what happens in a PEB building or a steel building. So I'll give you an example of rain, for example. When rain is hitting the roof of the insulation of the structure, the sound echoes like anything. And that's exactly what our material does. It has the capability of absorbing the rain noise so that the outside noise does not come inside. So the takeaway for the acoustic part is that always check the rain noise impact, if whether your insulation material is able to resist the rain noise impact or not. Always look out for this point. I'm short of time, so I'll just quickly brief regarding the sustainability part. So obviously, we have all the LEED ratings and IGBC ratings and so on, but the most important point here is the USEP certificate that I've highlighted in red. USEP means that this material that we are producing is a non-carcinogenic material, and it is a biosoluble material. That's the beauty of our material. So if in case a worker is inhaling that material, it will not cause any cancer to it. The material will flush out on its own easily without causing any health hazards. So always check the USEP part of the material. And the last part, let me show you a small video instead of taking you through this slide, and that will be the last part of my presentation. Always check the melting point of the insulation, whichever insulation that you are choosing from the industry. Always check what is the melting point of the insulation itself, because that's going to really play the most critical role in a fire. So just to show you we have compared ROCKWOOL with other insulation materials, just to show the fire performance of ROCKWOOL versus others. So we try to burn ROCKWOOL first. That is a generic glass wool. Then these are all polyester based insulations. This is a EPS. That is a polyurethane foam. That is a XPS or extruded polystyrene. And then last one is ROCKWOOL again. Thank you. So my last statement would be that there is a big difference in a small fire in a building or the entire building on fire. And we at ROXUL ROCKWOOL can make that difference for you. So next time if you want to choose your insulation, choose wisely. Thank you so much.